Yo, so I just played my round 4 and holy shit, it was actually the craziest game ever.
Hold up. Let me give you guys some context. So basically, last weekend I played in a weekend congress in London, and it was 5 rounds long, 90 minutes plus 30 each game. And I was kind of coming back to over the board as my first tournament since the whole congress, which if you've been following my videos, you would have seen that I had kind of a freak out during that tournament about my chess. So really, I was just trying to take this tournament as a chance to just have some fun and try and have my emotions controlled during my tournament. And on the whole, I think I actually managed to achieve that, and I did have fun. And I actually had one of the craziest games in round 4, which I'm going to show you now. And yeah, here's my reaction right after the game.
Yo, so I just played my round 4 and holy shit, it was actually the craziest game ever. I feel like I've experienced a near-death experience and come out the other side, but yeah, basically I won. But I swear to God, I had the worst position known to the history of man, and when you see this game later, you're gonna be absolutely gobsmacked how I managed to turn it around. But yeah, I felt like I just needed to tell someone because the next round starts in less than an hour and I'm still completely shocked. Like, my opponent was like so upset, like at the end of the game he was like, oh, you're so lucky, or something like this. So, and I don't think it was lucky, it was just like he gave me a sliver of hope. Like, it was like one of those positions where it's like plus 20 for him, and each move he makes, of course he's still winning, but it just gives me that one extra little chance of hope, and somehow I managed to get counterplay. But honestly, closed positions, I'm never playing a closed position in chess again, because clearly I can't play them to save my life. But you're gonna enjoy this game, so yeah, stick around.
Right guys, so this is the infamous game. Just to give you some context, I had 1 point out of 3, and I had played 2 2300s, both games which I lost, both games lasting 4 hours, so they definitely were close. They were both Benonis, and I felt like I was at a disadvantage from the opening because they played lines that I wasn't too familiar with. Kind of very old-fashioned lines, because both players, they were very rusty in the sense that like they used to be playing a lot more, and now they're only just getting back into it. So they were playing these like really old-fashioned lines. So I found that very interesting, but I learned a lot from that. And the game I did win, I won 9 moves. So I don't know, maybe I can just like plop it in this video by the side. But yeah, what I really wanted to show you today was actually my round 4 game, which was against this guy, Tavillier, and he was a very friendly chap at the start of the game. And I was late to the game, I must admit, by around 15 minutes. I was really not feeling it. This was the morning round on the Sunday, and I don't know, I just felt very demoralized. Like, the game I won in 9 moves, that didn't really feel like too satisfying, and the games I lost, I was like playing my best, I felt, but it just wasn't enough. So I wasn't feeling too optimistic, and in my head at that moment, I was thinking, you know, since I started like trying hard for chess, I feel like some aspects of my chess have improved, but some aspects of my chess have got a lot worse. And I think the aspects that have got worse are more like the practical kind of elements in chess, which I just haven't really had to think about in the last 2 years. So I can't really blame myself on that either. But for whatever reason, I decided before getting to the board that I was going to play one knight f3. Because this is how I used to play chess. And I wanted to remind myself that, hey, like, you're not relying on good openings to win your games. Like, you can actually play good chess. But as you can imagine from what you've heard about the game so far, it clearly went very badly wrong. So I played a typical Reti setup, which Alejandro Ramirez recommends, and here we have his bishop d6, which is quite an unusual move. Like most players are playing some bishop e7 and getting some kind of setup with like b6, with c5, and I kind of know how to play against this, and this was my favorite setup with white, and favorite setup to play against that black could choose. So I was looking forward to this, but bishop d6 is actually a very tricky move, and I think it's maybe there must be some new course or something that recommends this, because definitely I've seen players try it. And the idea is that you're going to set up a very similar setup to the one I just showed you, except that rather than have a knight here after the pawn is on c5 and a bishop on e7, you instead put the bishop on d6 and a knight on d7, which basically enables you to play for both c5 and e5 depending on how white responds. So I do my setup based on a c5 push, but he decides to delay it, which I think is a very smart move. I'm just kind of developing my pieces because right now I'm not being very ambitious with my thinking. I just want to make moves. I'm also 15 minutes late. I feel like it's not going to make or break the position. So we get this position. He plays c6. I play d3 so that if he ever plays d4, I can take, and then play d4. So like he's losing a tempo with c5, I'm losing a tempo with d4. And just kind of keeping my position quite flexible. That was what I was thinking. So rook e8, knight c3. So he's just improving his pieces, I'm improving mine. And we get to this point where I was thinking, okay, he's going to think for a long time. But he just kind of played this a6 quite quickly. And I feel like it's quite a useful move, because now if ever like there's some c5 or some e5, like I'm never going to have this knight b5 hitting the bishop. So I, at this point, wasn't really sure how to continue. I decided to play knight e1 with the idea of coming to c2, maybe playing some a3, b4, and just gaining some space on the queen side. And I think this was a good moment to strike in the center, since my knight had retreated to the back rank. And this is really where my problems start, because at this point, I haven't checked this with Engine at all, actually, this opening kind of stage. I'm thinking like I probably need to take, and so I can at least have a c file to play with, and then if needed, I can kind of play some like if they play like e4, maybe I meet that with d4. If they play here, I meet that with this. But I'm really not too sure actually how I'm supposed to be dealing with this. I might simply just be worse, and there's no good way of dealing with this center. Like, I don't see why white should be any better here. But in the game I played e4, because my thinking was this: if he took, I think I was going to take with the pawn, and I've got this d file to potentially play with. I could potentially double on it, maybe play knight here, and knight here if this pawn ever pushes. I think that's what I was thinking, but my opponent played d4, and I wasn't unhappy with this. Like, I thought that, okay, I can still play some, like, knight c2, a3, b4, and maybe break with some f4 as well, with some rook on f1. So I thought I was gonna get, like, some nice breaks in. But I think the fact of the matter is that these pieces... Well, the thing is, I've got a very closed setup, and I haven't exchanged a single piece. So obviously my position is going to be congested. And here, my opponent just played brilliantly to really show, you know, make use of the space disadvantage. So he starts rerouting his knight to the king side. I bring my knight to the queen side. He improves his bishop, which makes sense since it's no longer doing anything at all on this diagonal. I play a3. He plays a5, stopping any counterplay. Honestly, not too sure with knight d2. Maybe I think I was trying to come maybe this way, or maybe coming like this or something, if this pawn ever moves. I'm not too sure. But as you can see, like, I'm struggling for a plan if I'm not getting this b4 in. Black plays a nice little move to kind of provoke this f3, although I'm not sure how important that is. I play king h1. Black locks up the queen side. And at this point, black plays this h5. And I could meet this with h4, but I was kind of worried that perhaps this would get undermined somehow. I'm trying to remember what exactly I was scared of. maybe an eventual f5, f4, and this g3 pawn might get undermined. So here I decided to play bishop c1 with the idea of h4 I'd play g4, which is actually what happened in the game. And my whole thinking was this, like if I could lock up the king side, then I will make my break on the queen side and put all my pieces on the queen side and then be completely fine. But I think what I failed to realize is how dreadful this bishop is, for instance. And even if I make break on the queen side, it's not like black is badly positioned on the queen side. Like black actually has a lot of mobility due to a space advantage. He can swing his rooks over, and probably he's going to make the most of that queenside break. And here, as you saw, the last move was knight h7, and black finds a great maneuver with knight g5, knight e6, and knight f4. The point being that originally, if he tried to stick a knight on f4, I couldn't really take... I mean, I would take, and pawn would take, and black wouldn't really have anything to show. But now that he's got a knight supporting it, now he can bring a knight to f4, which is just an annoying piece. So I played bishop d2 because I'm still in the mindset of wanting to break with b4, and I do. But here I think my opponent makes a great decision as well to make these exchanges, in which I played this very quickly, and probably exchanging this bishop might actually be quite a bad idea, because I took, and after bishop takes, rook takes, I thought that, I have no weaknesses in my pawn chain, this is a weak pawn, but in fact, actually, black is probably at advantage here, because he brings a knight to another outpost. Look how great these knights are. Take a note how I no longer have my bishop on d2 to challenge the strong knight on f4. Note that my knights aren't in any place to kind of challenge these knights. And note that how black is going to take the a-file. So I played queen d2. I guess what even was my idea? I can't even think about why I was playing these moves, to be honest. Maybe to I guess I had to defend d3 if I ever wanted to move this rook, due to the strong placement of these knights. But yeah, black takes the file. I put pressure on the only thing going for me, this weak b6 pawn, and black defends it. And he's also preparing to double on the file, so I'm just kind of making moves that try not to lose immediately. He's coming down onto my second rank, so I try and defend. He improves his knight once more and brings his knight into this square. And here, if I try and stay pressuring this b pawn, then black is going to enter... I think I was scared if I play here, he would enter here. So I played rook c1. And black doesn't rush here. Can we just take a look and see how good black's position is? Both black's knights are great. Black has a completely strong center. This is the worst bishop I've ever seen. I was actually showing this game to a student today, and I said this bishop was just a big pawn. And she turned around and told me, Michael, it's worse than a pawn. It can't even move forwards. And I was like, yeah, that's a great point. This is worse than a pawn. So I have a bishop that's worse than a pawn. Two knights just defending for their lives on the back rank. I'm not even pressuring this weakness. It's just terrible. It's just absolutely terrible. And here I was thinking, what is wrong with my chess? I'm on 1 point out of 3. I'm about to lose a fourth game against a 1700. And I've just been completely outplayed. And it's I guess in this moment I was thinking okay, Michael, never ever ever play a closed position again, because you don't understand them. Stick to the wing gapping. Stick to open positions where your pieces have some activity, and that's where you thrive. So I was learning a lot from this beating. So black doesn't rush. He plays queen d6, improving his queen to enter on the queen side. I play this move. I can't really remember why, to be honest. I guess maybe pressuring the king side, in which g5 is just completely great, solidifying the knight, defending his weak h4 pawn. So here I come with the genius plan to play knight h2, bishop f1 and knight g2 to challenge the knight. Except as soon as I played this, I realized as soon as I play this, I just blundered a pawn. So Knight h2, a completely pointless move. Black enters on the second rank. I try and block it. Black enters some more. At least I get this bishop f1 in to kind of like not have my knight be pinned. Queen b4 happens. Queen d2. It was horrible. It was horrible. And just look at Black's position. Like, Black in one move can improve his bishop as well. It's completely dead lost for me. I think on an engine it said it was like -15 here. And for any newcomers to chess, when I say engine -15, what I mean is a chess computer says that Black's position is so overwhelming that despite not being any material up, it is the equivalent of being 15 pawns up, or a queen plus a rook plus a pawn. Like anything that adds up to 15 points. So Black was 15 points up in this position. I played knight g2. The reason being is that I guess on knight h3, that's probably just fine. But I think my reasoning was if Black maybe tries to take the knight, or perhaps move like knight here, check, king here, checkmate. As soon as he moves the knight, actually knight e2 might just be good. I don't know. My point is that like if this let's say this knight moves, but he would never move a knight. Okay, the point is if a knight took or moved, I would have queen takes g5, and I've got a perpetual, I believe, because if the king moves this way, I just give a check, and if he moves this way, then I give check here, and I don't think he escapes. Although, can he just play bishop here? Maybe I give a check here and he goes back, and then I've got no more checks. So maybe this is just a complete garbage plan as well. So, point being, I was playing dreadful. I was playing absolutely dreadful. So, at this point, I think he's got multiple wins. Like, literally multiple wins. He plays his knight d1. And here, I finally have a chance to improve a piece. Like, for the whole game, all of my pieces have been awful. And I finally see an opportunity to improve my position. And I play the c5 move. And the point being is if he ignores it, maybe I have some hope. Although he can probably just stick a bishop on c8 and I've got nothing. But if he ever takes, which is what happened, he played bishop a4, bishop c4, and he actually took, then maybe I have an active rook. And an active rook is something, because this whole game I've had active nothing. So in this position, Black literally has so many wins. Like, I saw them in the game as well, and I was just dreading my fate. Like, for instance, knight h3, knight here, is checkmate, pretty much, except I have to sack the queen. Or, for instance, I saw queen d3, it was actually really cute as well, because on any bishop takes, knight here is actually a double check, which is actually a checkmate. If queen takes, then I think just knight here, king here, knight, checkmate. So I was just seeing all of this and I was just like, oh, okay, do I just resign? Like, this is so bad. He took the pawn. Rook takes. And here he played knight e3, which didn't make too much sense to me because my knight is still protecting this bishop and I trade a piece. And here, obviously my position is still dead lost. Like, this pawn is coming, like, I don't think I can take this pawn. This was his idea, I think. I don't think I can take this pawn because I have to really worry about queen b2 and queen g2 checkmate, making use of these pieces. Like, his position's so strong with his knight. But in this position, I was trying to look for everything I had, like any sliver of hope. And I was trying to make some like queen c3 work, but then I thought if I play queen c3 with the idea of maybe like rook here, king here, queen takes check, maybe if I have a queen and rook attacking his king, maybe I can get some kind of perpetual or something, or even a checkmate. But I thought like, okay, if I play queen c3, like let's say he plays some attacking move towards my king, like pushing this pawn. If I play rook check, then he's simply just going to play king h7, and I've got nothing. Like, okay, actually, maybe I could play some rook h8, sack the rook, and, like, bring my queen in. So maybe there's something. Um, yeah, maybe there's something there. Although probably just king back to h7 on queen f5, knight g6, and I think there's not enough. Although takes here, king here, doesn't look like there are any more checks because knight covers f8. Anyway, I thought it would be more deceptive if I play rook check first. Because king h7 is not the most intuitive move, although it must be the best because it avoids any kind of tricks. So I play rook c8 check first, and he plays king g7. So I'm like, okay, maybe there's some hope. I play queen c3. Bearing in mind that like f6 does nothing because I can enter. And here I was fully expecting knight g6, I would have nothing, life sucks. But instead of knight g6, he played knight takes d3. And this I actually thought was an extremely clever move, and I thought, okay, this also wins, because I can't take because I'm pinned. And I can't take with the queen because simply queen takes and the rook is pinning. And the knight defends the pawn. So simply he's just won a pawn. But at this point, this was the crazy thing, right? Like, it was a 90 minutes plus 30 seconds a move game. And we both had 15 minutes left in this position. And I just sit here thinking and thinking. And my clock is just running down. And I swear to God, I went down to 1 minute. I spent 14 minutes on this move. And I actually found a really, really interesting move. So if you'd like to pause the video, you can try pause the video and try think of what my move was. It's like white to play. You lost anyway, but maybe give yourself a chance. So yeah, feel free to pause the video. And kudos to you if you found the move rook b8. So after 14 minutes of thinking, I found this move, and I didn't really understand it, but it looked really interesting. Because the point was like, if black takes, I can take this rook. And then maybe if I remove that one piece, like, black conveniently took this pawn. Maybe my bishop gets active. Maybe my knight has some kind of future. Maybe I'm not lost. I couldn't really evaluate it. Like, it took me 14 minutes to find this move. So, really well done if you found it in less time than that. But the point is, even though the position is dead lost, it gives me hope. And in this position, my opponent played queen d1, thinking everything he played would just be fine. Like, this is just avoiding the rook. Next move, he's pushing this pawn, or maybe giving some check. Like, this should be over. But suddenly, queen c8. And black doesn't really have a check. If knight f2, I simply just play king g2, and there's no more checks. Whereas I, with a rook and queen, given that all of his pieces are now on the offensive, I now have a simple checkmate in 2. Queen h8, rook g8. So here my opponent is shaking his head, he's like grunting, like, and after 14 minutes of thinking himself, he decides to play king f6. Now, the funny thing is, I'd been looking at all kind of resources for black just to make sure he had nothing. And I thought king f6 was his best bet. But for whatever reason, I was calculating king f6, like queen h8 for the longest time. But then I suddenly realized, oh, if king f6, queen d8 check is just mate in 2. Because if king here, simply rook b6, bishop blocks, rook takes, that's checkmate. And if king f6, queen d8, king g7, then we just go back to queen h8, king g6, rook g8, checkmate. So I was pretty content. I'd stopped calculating king f6. And then he played it. And then I played queen d8 in an instant. But then it suddenly dawned on me, like, hold up, like, can't my opponent just play king g6? And if I play check, then he goes back and check. And I don't really want a perpetual. And I was a bit stressed at this moment. But my opponent probably only fought for like 10 seconds. And resigned. And the thing is, king g6 is lost. I don't know if my opponent did calculate all of the moves. But the thing is, I have to find a very precise queen h8 to put the king in a mating net. Given that black doesn't have any checks. And basically now, if some f6, I've got this queen h5, rook b7, and now I checkmate. But still, this isn't the like easiest thing to find when I only have a minute left. And I think that's why emotions can play such a huge part to your chess skill. Because when I played Queen D8 on the board, my opponent resigned after 10 seconds. He was so frustrated, he like said to me like, "Oh, you're so lucky, you're so lucky," like something like this. And he didn't like shake my hand or fist bump me because he was so upset. And I can completely understand because he just completely outplayed me, played a brilliant game, and in 2 moves managed to go from a -15 position to like a +10 position after Queen C8. But the thing is, on Queen D8, it's not completely over. King G6, it's like not so easy to win, and maybe I panic with 1 minute on my clock, give a check, and give a perpetual. And that's a whole half-point difference. And I think this is exactly the same thing as in my whole tournament, not my final round, which I lost disastrously, but the round before where I was playing the IM, where I had a beautiful position too, and I managed to completely collapse and lose then what was a drawn position. And I think that too was due to my emotions. Like, I just was so devastated that I'd messed up a win. I couldn't even think about fighting. And I think that's the biggest take-home message that, well, firstly, if you have the white pieces in such a position, I can imagine many players in this position here after Queen B1 just resigning. Just being like, hats off, Black has played a brilliant game, White has played the worst game of his life. But I think to become a good chess player, you have to always fight. As like, if you're serious about taking chess to the next level, you can't give up in any position, no matter how bad it gets. And if you ever feel like giving up, just think about this game and think about how I managed to turn it around, because it is possible. Like, I will lose this game 1 in 50 games. Sorry, like 49 out of 50 games, but 1 in 50 games I will win. So yeah, that's the absolutely crazy game. Queen D8, Black resigns, White wins. So yeah, hope you took something from that. I have to say, you'll be glad to know that my whole kind of mood after this tournament, even though I only scored 2 out of 5 again, I really gave it my all in every game, and I felt like I played some great fighting chess. And that's all I can really do. And I also learnt so much from each game to the point where I felt like I don't even care about the score. I don't even care that I lost 10 rating points. I'm just more happy that I really made some progress as a chess player from playing this tournament. So I don't know how much I'm going to be playing in future. I'm definitely playing in Hastings. We'll see from that point onwards. But yeah, at least I'm not in like a very pessimistic, self-doubting kind of chess mood, which I think is honestly the worst, which I've been feeling the last few weeks. And definitely this game was a turnaround. Like, I was playing so badly, like as you can see this whole game, and the funny thing is, as soon as I get a little bit of space, like the tiniest little C file, suddenly my play comes to life. So I think that's a huge take-home message for my play as well, that I'm not a player that thrives in closed positions, and I should stick to open games. So yeah, hope you learned something from this game review, and let me know in the comments if this is something you would like to see in the future. And please give this video a like. We're almost about to hit 1k subscribers, which is absolutely massive, and every like is gonna help promote our channel. So stay tuned for some chess content in the future, and see you around.